All right, we're back. Hey, we're going to talk about the first letter in NICER, the first word. And that first letter N stands for no compromise. Roland, speak to me about no compromise.
Oh, no compromise. It's so easy for us to compromise as men when we're at work, when we're at home, when we're with our friends. Somebody say, let's just do this. Oh, we can do this just this one time. And it's easy for us to give up a little bit here, a little bit there. And no compromise is about this idea of, we want to be wise as we are Christians in our life, at work, at home, in our family, in our marriage, with our buddies at the ball game. We have to make right decisions, and it's not about having no fun. It's about making sure we don't compromise our witness, what God's put on us as Christians, taking the image of Christ and walking around every day, all day like that, and making sure we don't compromise that image. So that sounds pretty technical, but let's dig in.
All right, so you talked about Daniel. Let's unpack that a little bit. What about Daniel spoke to no compromise?
Well, Daniel, you know the story of Daniel, how he was, basically there was a hostile takeover by the Assyrians. They took over the Jewish people and brought them back, and then Daniel got put into the management training program. And at work, many of us get put into a training program, and then the company will say, well, these are the rules. We're expecting this, we're expecting that, we're expecting that. And in Daniel's case, some of those rules violated the beliefs he was taught as a kid back in Sunday school in Jewish days. And so the idea here is, how did Daniel work through that? And what really attracted me to Daniel was, he's not just saying, well, this is the rule. There's my red line in the sand. I'm not going to do that. What he's doing is he's using his noggin. He's using his brain to try and understand, to try and negotiate, to try and work his way through the issues. And that's what's exciting. How does he confront these issues in a real situation with his boss, where he's not going to get fired, he's going to get executed if he doesn't make it, right? If he doesn't behave. And how does he handle that? And that's what attracted me.
So his faith was working in what his belief system. He absolutely believed it, and he was showing that as being a man of action, and with his life at risk. Correct? Let's talk about that for a minute. What actually did he do to go against it?
Well, let's start at the very beginning, where him and his buddies, they had to eat the king's food. Pork chops, wine, whatever it was. You have to eat these things so you can look as good as you can, so that you can complete the training program. Well, let's take the pork chops. That was not a good starting point for Daniel in his beliefs. The Jewish people didn't eat pork. And so he had to negotiate. He went to his supervisor and said, look, boss, this is what I believe. This, for me to protect my family, or for me to protect my, as we would say, to protect my wife or my children or my church, this is the things that I don't want to do in my belief system. You're asking me to do this. That puts me in a difficult situation. And then he said, well, rather than just pointing out a problem, if you've ever been in a company, some people point out a problem and not offer a solution. Yeah. It's just like complaining. Sure. So Daniel points out the problem. He says, here's the problem, but here, how about this? Let's try this. Vegetables and water for 7 days or 10 days, whatever it was, and then compare the results. No risk for the supervisor. Everybody wins. And so he's using his brain. That was attractive.
What about an example in your life?
Yeah, so I had a situation as a young man where I had a traveling job. I have 4 kids at home, and we'd made the decision we're going to move to California and live there and work in a consulting company, and I'm going to be sent out rather than working for the big company in Chicago and then going to Texas and then going here and going there. And we're going to get some stability for the kids. Well, one of these jobs I was working on, finally there's a job in Venezuela I'm working at, and the boss is saying, well, you need to go down to Venezuela for a couple of weeks to do this installation and work with the other leading member on the team, who is a young single woman. And I'm thinking to myself, that is not going to go over very well, to spend 2 weeks, a weekend, and 2 weeks in Venezuela, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then nothing on a weekend, just doing tourist things with this young female engineer. So I went to my boss and I said, boss, how can we handle this? Can we make some sort of deal? And I came up with an alternate arrangement that said, well, the company's only got a limited budget, but if we do this and we do that, maybe I can go this way and she can go that, or we can add somebody to the team, and we worked it out. So it was better for the customer, better for the company, and very much like the Daniel arrangement, where we used our brain, we negotiated something instead of just taking it. A lot of times like Christians, we're just sort of like, oh, well, I better just fall over. And the boss said, that's a good Christian thing to do.
That's right.
Daniel's demonstrating, maybe we should use what God's given us.
And a lot of that is based on fear. We don't want to address those above us. But again, what we're doing then is we're putting our own belief system at risk. And it's funny because Back in the day, about 20 years ago in the year 2000, I had raised $1.3 million to build a new company. It was called BizLink. And it was awesome. As a matter of fact, 20 years later, it's still a good idea. But I was a little bit ahead of the curve at that point. The money was literally thrown at me because it was in the .com situation. You know, everything that was thrown, literally, I got a blank check once. They just said, write a number in there. And what happened was, in the crash of April 2000, the bubble burst on the tech stocks. And I was supposed to get $500,000 the next day. Never happened. But we acquired a company which was against my will, but since I was only a 31% owner at that time, the board elected to buy it. We brought on that company as well as their president, and their president and my vice president of sales allegedly got together and under my nose allowed things to happen that shouldn't have happened. It's my mistake. I take full responsibility. It was my decision. I was the leader. But what transpired was the company was going to go bankrupt. And I had everything invested in this company. I mean, every single penny, literally every penny. Well, when the company went bankrupt and they voted to go bankrupt, I had no choice. I was urged to go bankrupt myself. I refused to do it on biblical principles. I didn't think it was right. But there still was this lingering corporate bankruptcy. And what I decided to do is I went to my wife because I knew the people that were going to be losing this money in this corporate bankruptcy. And it was about $200,000. And I went to my wife, who just found out that we lost everything except our home. 3 small kids, a mortgage. It was scary. And I went to her and I said, Beth Ann, I want to take on that corporate debt personally. Well, she didn't even blink an eye. She just said, absolutely. And that put us on a journey, quite frankly, to this day, 20 years later, we felt that pain. But at the same time, Roland, because I didn't compromise and because I believe I did the right thing, God opened up the door to this entire ministry, Legacy-Minded Men. I could not have Legacy-Minded Men, which has now touched tens and tens of thousands of men around the world. But because of that no compromise, we were able to step out and grow from that experience. And, you know, I'm wondering right now, what is it in your life? What's in your life that you're compromising, that you're giving into? You know, if we really look at this the right way and we address what we believe in and we make our faith come into action, what could happen for you? Take one man's story, take another man's story. What about your story? It's yet to be written. If you're a man who's compromising, don't compromise. No compromise.
You know, interestingly, there's so many opportunities to compromise. It says, Jesus said the way of the cross, the way of Christ is narrow. The road is narrow. And as men, everybody around us is taking the big road, the big highway. At work, Daniel could have just gone with the flow. Oh, if I don't eat this, you know, I could kicked out of the program, I could lose my job, my life. And it's not maybe not that severe for us as men in our jobs or in our positions or in our family that we're going to lose everything. But we should be in a position where we're evaluating what people are asking us to do. And I come back to Daniel and his example, using the mind God has given you. God's given us the ability to analyze. Unlike any animal, any other creature on this earth, we can analyze, we can negotiate, and that's what we should use. That's a gift from God to humankind. And when we meet something where we feel inside the Spirit is speaking to us, I'm not so sure about this, Roland. I'm not so sure about this, Joe. When you have that little voice inside, it's time to just step back and look, well, what would Daniel do? What would Jesus have me do? Should I be going down this route without any word at all? Should I just follow blindly? Or should I actually speak up? And there's a time for speaking up. There's a time for negotiation. And when we're open to it, when we are aware that people are going to ask us to compromise, and that is damaging to our faith in the long term, we want to make a difference for Christ. We want to stand out. We don't want to compromise. The easiest thing to do is, of course, just to say, no, I can't. I can't work on Sunday because I go to church. No, I can't because I'm married. No, I can't because I don't drink. No, I can't because that's illegal. No, I won't because. Just saying no is not enough. God's given us this mind, like Daniel, to negotiate, to work through these issues.
Yeah, and what we like to do now is kind of pause the tape and give you the ability to address some questions. So you're going to find some questions that are coming along with this video. Take a look at them, discuss them, whether it's amongst yourself or with a group. Go to it.